Welcome to the Man Sports Fan podcast. My name is Phil. I'm your host. I am with Brian Fremming, otherwise known as Fremdog or Fremdog Millionaire, and Chris Smith, which has many nicknames. The one I usually call him is P. Allen Smith. And Chris, who is P. Allen Smith?
He was a weatherman. No, a gardener. He was
Gardener on the Weather Channel. Explain what gardening was. So,
Thank you.
yeah, how are you guys doing? What's going on in your lives, or personally, or your sports life?
Doing good. I feel like the second time back here, like this is a real thing now. Once you do it twice, it's like a winning streak, right? Doing well. I know we'll get into some of the things that are definitely on my mind sports wise, but yeah, just in the grind of the school year and ready to chat here late at night.
Ready to ball, mini hoop style. Yeah, life's good. I can't wait to talk about some Badger basketball. Packers in the off season, and the Super Bowl coming up. It's pretty. It's exciting. I'm definitely excited for it.
I wonder if we all feel a little bit of a lift with Joe Barry being let go. We just all felt a weight come off of us, and we'll talk more about that. We're all happy to be back. Like Chris said, second time in a row, second week in a row, trying to make this a regular thing. For our fantasy league, we'll eventually do just a podcast probably on our fantasy league rules, because if any of you are listening, we actually had an interesting chat happen in the text, in the text threads. Chris has, concocted a league that's pretty cool, pretty different, pretty interesting. So, but we really should start with Badger basketball, just because big game last night against Minnesota, squeak out a win 61-59. Couple days before that, beat Indiana at home, roughed them up pretty bad. I think put 91 up on them. In your guys' heads, Badgers back on track. What did you think of those games? What do you think the state of the team is right now?
Yeah, so Indiana was a interesting game. Like you said, put up 91 points. Thinking back to what we talked about last week, the defense, we had a hard time slowing them down, but we were just shot for shot matching them, and we went on a few runs throughout the game that really separated. I mean, offensively, we are so efficient. And I think this is the most efficient team since the 2014-15 team. We know how good that team was. But it's just going to come down to that defensive side of the ball. Like, Indiana really highlighted that again too, right? Like, they would come down the court, they would make shots. But then Minnesota kind of gave me some confidence. As sloppy as of a game it was good to see us make stops in big moments. And win on a night where we weren't playing our best on the road in the Big Ten. Never going to complain about that. So, yeah, it's nice to see us get back on track after that Penn State game. Even with that close game against Minnesota, some people are going to look at that and say, I'm not sure about this Badger team. I actually think that was a big boost for us to win that game on the road, ugly, because we haven't won a game like that yet.
Yeah, I think that might have been our worst half of basketball offensively, the second half that we had all season. We pulled through on the road when they came back multiple times. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I think that was actually a really good win against a team that needed to win in Minnesota. And obviously with the big rivalry, and we always struggle in that place for whatever reason. So that was a huge win. Brian, any thoughts with it?
Yeah, no, I think piggybacking on the last podcast here, you said it, Phil. I mean, the depth of the team. I mean, you look at the two different games, obviously very different, outcomes there and production and whatnot. But just seeing, that any player can really step up, and seeing that I think we have that depth to fall back on. I mean, the Barn is a brutal place to play, and I think of Badger basketball and on the road, we never play well in that stadium. Regardless, it's just kind of a goofy. I don't know if you've been to the Twin Cities. This is kind of a goofy, cozy, stadium, and it's loud, I think, and it's just a tough place to play for the Badgers. So happy to see us come out of there with a W.
And they are inferior to us, so it's like they just want to beat us so much, more. Indiana also same thing. They're pretty inferior to us too in basketball the last 10 years, especially with Tom Crean there, bless his heart. Max Klesmit put up 20 in a row against Indiana. I'm like still in shock about how he's playing and like the way he's playing and the confidence, and like when he shoots a three, I think he's going to make it every time. Which that was, I mean, the first even 10 games of the year, Max Klesmit, you're like, yeah, it gets me 7-8 points a game, good defense, kind of a glue guy. Chris, you're living in Madison. You've been to the games. I mean, how are people responding to Max Klesmit, and how surprised are people with what's going on?
Yeah, the Klesmit run against Indiana was insane. It was so cool. Like as a like you said, being there, you just felt like every shot was gonna go in. And the coolest part about him is like he was on that roll, and then all of a sudden, like one of the next possessions, he had a wide open three, and while he was in midair, like saw Carter Gilmore diving to the basket and just fed him for a layup. Like it just shows the evolution of his game. And like Frem said, like what's super interesting is we don't need him to do that every night. And so like I think that makes him even more dangerous, because like anyone on this team can get you. So yeah, like being at the games is a lot of fun this year because of that. Like, because here's what's interesting about Klesmit is, like, when he's on that, like the defenders have to stay close to him, so it opens up Kral to not get doubled. So then Kral starts going off, and like when Kral's not getting doubled, it opens up people like moving on the backside and opening up. Like we don't have an offensive sort of deficiency outside of probably Carter Gilmore, but like guard uses him so well that he can hide him enough where you don't even notice it. So I talked about last week, like we don't have offensive droughts, and
it's crazy.
It's just weird.
It's weird. Like, yeah.
So it's a good time.
I think. I mean, I said this last week. I think Storr is actually better than Johnny Davis. I do, and so look at the numbers shooting, especially free throw line in particular, and 3-point shot. But it's like you have Storr who could go off at any moment. Klesmit didn't shoot the ball till 7 minutes in the game yesterday. And John Blackwell came off the bench at minute 11. And so it was like, and John Blackwell hadn't played at all. And it's like, he's scoring 10 points a game. It's crazy, the depth. I mean, it's such a fun team to watch this year. And they all mix and match so well. And you're like, I don't know how this lineup is going to go. And yet they produce. And maybe defensively, no, they're not always the best with certain lineups, but they produce offensively. It's awesome.
Yeah, question on my mind is, I'm curious your guys' thoughts, because I feel like I struggle with this. So Connor Essegian, obviously coming off a really good freshman year, was never great defensively. Obviously the reason he's not playing is because of his defense. Like his minutes are really limited at this point. Like I keep like through the first part of the season, I'm like, at some point we're gonna need him. Like he's gonna have to step up. Like he's gonna have to be this guy. But I'm starting to wonder, like, do we? Are we gonna need him? Or like, is his role where he's at? Like, is this good enough?
Yeah, I thought the same thing, Chris. Is box scores when rolling in. I'm not maybe glued in quite as much as you are there in Madison going to all the games. And yeah, I just was kind of shocked seeing that. I'm like, where is he? What's going on? Other guys are playing, performing. We don't need him. Yeah, I mean, I always wonder late in the year, maybe get an injury or two here or there. Tournament time that you're going to need everyone. So it's good to know he's there. But yeah, I mean, gosh, given the depth and given how everyone's gelling and playing together right now, you kind of wonder. And if we don't use him this year, I wouldn't be surprised if he transferred. I mean, the kid can play. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So it's kind of a tough one. Of maybe this isn't the right system for him or the right program for him. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I mean, there still could be a game where he goes off for 20 or 25, and I don't think anybody would be surprised. Because but I wonder how Guard uses his minutes. If he gets hot, do you take him out? Because it feels like he has. Like he's shot really well, and then Guard takes him out for 10 minutes at a time. So does that
Mhm.
change? Does that. You're right. If an injury comes into play, maybe it shifts a little bit. But in terms of our need for him, I don't. Yeah, I think we have guards that are actually more all around better. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. You might be right. Maybe he does transfer. Um, yeah. Do you have any last thoughts with that, Chris, before we move?
No, I don't think so. You reminded me like the Connor Essegian leash of Greg Gard is like Sam Decker's leash with Bo Ryan. Like he's got one shot, and if he makes a mistake, he's out of the game.
Or Rob Wilson?
Yeah, Rob. Love Rob.
Rit. All right, well, let's move on. Love always talking Badger basketball, but let's get to the Packers. Obviously, the game on Saturday, a heartbreaker of a game, and yet hopeful, happy to be there, surprised we even got that far. It's kind of a mix of emotions. I guess, what did you guys think about the game? And what were like, I don't know, were there positives in your mind with it?
No doubt. I think you get through the first half, and you're like, okay, we are going to keep this game close. Like that we're going to have probably one score game. We're going to definitely cover here. Which that was reassuring. You get to the third quarter, and you're like, we can win this game. We get that Tucker Craft touchdown, the 2-point conversion, Air Jones. I'm like, we're up by 7. I'm like, okay, we're in good territory. I somewhat wondered and kind of predicted. Brock Purdy didn't really, seize the moment per se. I think he had that last drive, which he performed, hit the guys he needed to. But yeah, I mean, they were riding McCaffrey, for the majority of that game, and so I felt really good. Yeah, getting that Carlson, the field goal, that was rough right there. Right there, you kind of saw it right there. You're like, okay, this is how this is going to go. But even down the last drive, I mean, I think we still had 3 timeouts. It's a agonizing Favre-esque cross the body interception. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we're a team that can compete, and I think people are going to be picking us, to be a hot team next year. The maturation of Jordan Love is, I don't know if anyone could have predicted this level of stardom for Jordan Love. So I think that has to be the biggest takeaway. I know he had some unlucky plays, kind of some untimely, errors in that game, but we are not in that game without Jordan Love whatsoever. So yeah, as a Packers fan, there's a heartbreak, but then you have to sit back and be like, wow, like this team, this rebuilding year after Aaron Rodgers leaves us. Yeah, I don't know if anyone could have predicted we do this well.
Yeah, I mean, Love played such a good first half, and I think we were texting in our group chat, like, maybe he's just not going to have a bad game. Like, maybe this is just who he is, and we're just going to keep rolling. And unfortunately, he just went cold in the second half, right? He just missed some easy throws, and you could tell, like, his confidence got shook. And it did change, like, just how the team performed as a whole. Where I kind of struggle with this, Phil, you were talking about like the emotions of it, and like you never know when you're going to get back here. So like part of me is like, they were for the majority of the game they outplayed them. Like we probably deserved the win all the way up to the last couple of minutes of the game, until the 49ers really started to seize it. But so just my perspective of this is like everyone says, oh, they're going to be back, they're going to be better. It's like, well, you don't know. Like Love gets hurt, week 4 next season, is out for the year. Like it just felt like this was a missed opportunity. And I know as a Packer fan, it feels like that a lot, especially the last 10, 15 years. But yeah, I would say definitely outperformed expectations. But when you're in that situation, I mean, I just felt like they had a chance to close it several times and just couldn't do it. And obviously the sign of a young team, but Uh, Disappointing just based on like we had them on the ropes. They didn't play well. The weather played in our favor, I feel like, for the most part. Like we weren't falling. They were falling all over the place. Like just felt like it was set up perfectly to move on, and just a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I didn't know if I would. I think if 49ers had beat us pretty handedly, I would feel even happier about the game, which is really weird. I think we actually should have won the game. I think the rain started to affect Love and Purdy more. Um, and I think their defense was better than ours. I really do. I think their game plan, especially second half, like they took away the short things and they tackled better than us. And I think that's actually what somewhat of what how they won the game. And Purdy was clutch in the final drive. And yeah, you have to give credit to Ayuk on that one really tough grab where I don't know what corner's guarding him there, but he has a hand there and he doesn't get it. It's a good catch. Um, and Love, yeah, I think he was a little rattled, but I also like he'd made that throw in Detroit, right? He threw it to I think Malik Heath, cross his body, other side of the field, but it's in a dome. It's against the Lions. Uh, he has Aaron Jones in the flat there, and I don't know what he was thinking. Um, Maybe the moment was too big, and yet you're like, maybe you do. Is this just the sign of a young team? It's like the Aaron Rodgers against the Cardinals, right? The 51-45 game where you didn't make that one last play. Because you're right, we should have had. You could make an argument we should have had at least 17 to 20, 21 points in the first half, and we ended with 6. And so it's like, yeah, I think hopefully it's a sign of a young team. I think losing Zach Tom actually hurt us more than we thought it would, especially in the run game. They stopped running the ball, and or if they ran the ball, it was like Emmanuel Wilson instead of Aaron Jones in the second half, and I didn't understand that. Um, yeah, I don't know. I wasn't always happy with how things were called, especially in the fourth quarter. But Love just didn't make the throws, and I don't know if it was the rain, his confidence, um, or what. But I think you do have to be excited about the future, though, knowing that hey, you're going to have a little bit of salary cap room, especially if they release Bakhtiari, most likely going to happen because I don't know if he can play again, and you're going to have top 100 picks or 5 of the top 100 picks in the draft. So yeah, it'll be interesting, and we'll talk more about Joe Barry and what's going to come up here. But do you guys have any, I guess, last thoughts on the game, or I think just anything else that stood out to you from what you watched?
Yeah, besides the agonizing, interceptions we dropped. I mean, you go on and on of all the
Uh,
missed opportunities. I think two quick takes would be we got just as far, and even farther, depending on the year, that we did with Aaron Rodgers. So we've already kind of achieved what was kind of our typical ceiling, if you will, with Rodgers. And then, I mean, I think how we went out, even as painful it is, and I totally agree with you, Chris. You never know when you get back, but to lose like this, I don't think we perform better in the championship round, or if we somehow made the Super Bowl. I don't think that's a better game for us. I mean, I look at those two AFC teams left, and the Chiefs and Ravens are terrible matchups for us. If we made it to the Super Bowl, I don't know. So getting blown out maybe in a Super Bowl, or I don't see this being a Super Bowl winning team. So I know that may not be a popular opinion by Packer fans, but to go out this way, I think says like, hey, we're a legit team moving forward, and I think there's some momentum with it. So as painful as it was to endure, I'd much rather have this outcome than see us lose later on.
Yeah, my last takeaway, and I hate to do this because I don't want to be this guy, but it's just really interesting the Anders Carlson thing. I didn't really know this until I saw it posted on X, but like he wasn't even a good percentage kicker in college. Like so, like to expect him to sort of outperform that this year, I guess was probably unrealistic. And like you kind of get what you got, and it is what it is. I don't That didn't cost them the game per se, but Like, I hope that's something that they think about in the off season, like what direction they want to go. Because he said 70% kicker in college. It's kind of what he was around this year, and like that matters. Like we saw 2 playoff games lose because of kicks, and like once you get to the playoffs, teams are so even that you need to be able to execute on special teams. So,
well, and they did
just something that's
otherwise.
on my mind.
Besides that kick, they
Yeah,
almost
right.
were. They almost were so good. I guess you had the fumble, right? That was recovered by us, right? With Keyshawn
What
Nixon. But
what an amazing play, by the way.
oh, it was incredible.
That was one of the best. I think I tweeted out like, if we win this game, I'm buying his jersey. I didn't even know who he was. Like,
Yeah.
He used to
what
play
a
for
play.
the Vikings.
Yeah, what a play.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I just think they thought, hey, we're rebuilding. We're probably not going to make the playoffs this year. And if we do, Love's not going to be a star. You know, like it'll be because of the other aspects of our team. And as it turns out, Love looks like he's a star. And at that point of the season, right, your wild card division playoffs, it's like, are you going to get another kicker? You know, and I mean, it would have felt weird. And yet going into the game, I just had this thought, like, could we lose because of Anders Carlson? You know, like, could that actually hurt us? And it did, you know, which is just, it is unfortunate. It is sad to end that way.
Yeah. When I heard the Bisaccia connection to his brother in Las Vegas and, you know, kind of this is his guy, I started to really scratch my head. I think the take by local pundits is, why don't you bring in a veteran kicker late in the season, try somebody else out? I mean, this guy was missing extra points, most missed field goals in the league. I mean, it's a pretty skeptical kicker to bring into a postseason run. So, yeah, I kind of like you said, Phil, I think they're, you know, maybe like, we just got to keep developing these young guys. We're going to have a first round, you know, wild card, you know, exit here. We're not going to make it that far. And so it's interesting. I think if the expectations were higher for this team, I don't think he's kicking in that game.
Yeah, totally.
We went to the store looking for Daniel Carlson, and we ended up with the off-brand, unfortunately.
Anders. Well, let's jump to Joe Barry, because the much maligned Joe Barry was let go today. And yeah, if you read anything on the X or Twitter, let's just call it Twitter. What's come on, Elon. Why? Yeah, like, not saying why he got fired. I think a lot of us kind of, you know, the up and down nature of Joe Barry and the vanilla Joe Barry, the playing 10 yards off on a 3rd and 5 Joe Barry, right? Like, we have all these reasons. What do you think ultimately the Packers need to do to change what's been a weird run of defensive coordinators, from Dom Capers to Mike Patine to Joe Barry, where it has all kind of felt and looked the same for the last 16 to 17 years? What needs to change?
Yeah, I was listening to this, you know, kind of dilemma this morning. Yeah, what are we, you know, I think where's the NFL? Who's running a 4-3 right now? Who's running a 3-4? You know, what's going to be our scheme moving forward? Yeah, I think I think Packer fans, you know, whether you're, you know, really a football guru or not, I think, you know, just say like, where is the creativity? I think if you watch the Detroit Lions game, you're watching these like corner safety blitzes off the edge, you know, selling out, you know, really going after the quarterback. You know, teams playing, you know, cover zero, really putting pressure on a quarterback. You just don't see that from Green Bay. You don't see the creativity, the nuance, you know, game planning for specific quarterbacks. It just seems like we roll out the same game plan every play, and we're like, here you go, guys, let's go for it. And so I think that's where you want to see a much more, I think, responsive defensive coordinator, really trying to utilize and be creative with the talent you have on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think this goes back to something. I feel like I've been beating this drum for a long time, but like you named these defensive coordinators, and it just kind of made me chuckle a little bit, because you're right. Like, it always kind of looks the same. But it just makes me think back to like our draft philosophy and the defenders that we take. And always had this belief that the Packers care about drafting versatile players. Like they'd rather have a guy that can play three positions than is really good at one. Or like my running joke with it. But like I do think to some defense of our defensive coordinators over the years is like we don't have just stud players, especially like on the D line and in the linebacking core that can truly like just be really good at one thing. And so I think we try to mix and match a little bit, which makes it difficult. But I do think like whoever we bring in, hopefully they have an idea of what type of player they're looking for, and that's what we target. Because I do think that could ultimately change the way we draft. And like I said, versatility matters, but in today's NFL, like you want a guy that can, like on the D line that can get to the quarterback. You want a linebacker that's good in coverage, and then you want corners and safeties that can stay home in their area, but also like make a tackle when needed. And sometimes I feel like we miss the boat, and just like injuries have always been just a detriment for some reason too. We just can't stay healthy on that side of the ball. I have no idea why that is, but.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting they fired their strength and conditioning coach today too.
Yeah, saw that.
Probably because of some of those soft tissue injuries, random stuff, which I think is sometimes I think is actually more unlucky than anything else. But I don't know. Obviously, they felt a need for a change. I mean, I think overall they need. I mean, if you look at the Ravens, they just cause chaos.
Yeah.
And they punch you in the mouth. I mean, that's kind of this weird cliche, but they play really, a lot of press man. And I think they, the Joe Barry, Mike Pettine, even Dom Capers idea was, hey, we're going to limit the big plays. We're going to let guys go, take it underneath. And Brandon Staley runs this. Vic Fangio, who was fired today, runs this. And I think that actually doesn't work anymore. I actually think you need to cause turnovers. You need to get into the QB's head that they're gonna be coming and they could come from anywhere, and that they don't actually know what the look is when they're at the line of scrimmage. And I actually thought this is what the 49ers did to Jordan Love, where they put 6 or 7 guys up there and then they drop out. I think this is what the Chiefs do as well. And I think if anything, a Wink Martindale, not that I actually don't want us to hire him, but that kind of scheme, where it's a little bit chaotic. You might give up some big plays, but maybe then you're going to get the ball back. But you're actually going to create enough bigger plays defensively and make stops where, hey, they're going to have to punt at least 3 or 4 times a game, which, I mean, I think even the Bears game, did they punt 1 time in that win? I mean, it wasn't a lot. It was once or twice maybe. And yeah, we only give up 9 points, but how much is that? Because Justin Fields can't play quarterback like a regular quarterback. So we've played a lot of pretty crappy quarterbacks the last 10 or 15 years. And not that we haven't had games against good quarterbacks, but it feels like even against some bad quarterbacks, we've given them really good games. Obviously, career games this year from Tommy DeVito and some Baker Mayfield, So who are some potential people that you like or that you'd be wanting the Packers to look at?
Yeah, it's a great question, Phil. Before I get to that, when you're talking, it brought me back to the 90s of, Fritz Schirmer. And I remember growing up as a kid, hearing the bend but don't break. It's just, that was, I think, pre-analytic football. You bet on people punting and kicking the ball. And guess what? People don't do that anymore. You have the Dan Campbell, whatever this Brandon Staley style of football of let's roll the dice. It's 4th and 4 at our 40, or we're across the 50 and we're going for it. And so I think, bending, but don't, breaking. I think that requires somebody to kick field goals and only have 3 downs to move the ball. And
that's interesting.
4-down football, I think I'm going to check down all day and take 3-4 yards at a time, and I'm going to get my first downs over and over again. So I think there's a lot of analytics, like you're saying, Phil, that go into the modern game of football, and I think you have to be aggressive, like you said. And so that brings the question. I've heard names like Al Harris. I mean, we just lit them up at Dallas. That's not really convincing after that game.
Yeah, I think it's just because he was a Packer. I think that's why people are saying that.
Yeah. Obviously I think we're, all, the faithful Wisconsin fans. Jimmy Leonard comes to mind. Mike Vrabel, I think that'd be a weird dynamic, as some have said, that he would be essentially playing underneath the coach that he, had underneath him, with LaFleur in Tennessee. So, those are some names that come to mind. I mean, I don't know. Could you imagine like Rex Ryan coming back? I feel like it's not going to be a big name, just knowing how Green Bay operates. It's going to be somebody a little more under the radar than that. But yeah, I think we need somebody who's playing this more modern style of football. Actually, Brandon Staley's name was actually thrown out since his firing from LA. So not that I love him as a coach, but we definitely need somebody who's more aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, just put me on the Jim Leonard train. I mean, obviously it's a homer pick, but like what he did here in Madison, just in terms of like you talk about creativity and you talk about bringing pressure from any direction and not caring sometimes if they gave up the big play, like willing to risk. But also like, and it just will always ring in my head. Was it Rex Ryan that said like Jim Leonard's like the best, like had the best mind for scheme and defense that like any player he's ever coached.
Smartest player he's ever coached.
Yeah, right. Like to me, it's a no brainer. Obviously, it would be a home run hire like in state, but like I just feel like he has the mind, like he's ready for the NFL, and he obviously had the opportunity to take the job already. It just feels like a natural fit. I'm hoping that that's potentially why he's been really quiet and kind of holding out. Just wondering if something like this would happen again. So,
you don't want to work for Brett Bielema anymore.
Yeah, right.
Stop being an analyst. Come to Green Bay. Because I'm with you. I think he played in the NFL for 10 years. He's 5'8". He was 5'8", 170 and played for 10 years. Obviously, his measurables weren't the greatest. He was undrafted. I think you're right. I think he has the mind, and he constantly put top 5, top 10 defenses in all of college football out there. And he didn't have the same talent, especially in the secondary. He didn't have the same talent. I think he's ready. So that's definitely my like top one with you. Everybody keeps bringing up like Evero, but that guy ran the same scheme. And I don't think they'll run the same scheme. I just don't think they will. I think the thing with Evero was that he could make in-game adjustments really well, which Barry wasn't always great. But I think they're going to try to change the philosophy because I think people, I think they're tired of the way that defense has been in Green Bay for the last 20 years.
Yeah. Well, and I just add, you hopefully with a hire, depending on, when this all happens, you want to attract hopefully some defensive free agents and, kind of sort of flipping the script into, what you want to hope to see in the offseason. We need to bring in somebody. I think, the circa 2010, Charles Woodson, championship football team. We got to bring in somebody who's going to be a leader for this team, be a voice for this team, and really, really bring people together. And I don't quite see that right now, even though, out of all the players we have right now, I don't quite see that leadership. So looking to really bring a bigger fish in on the defensive side of the ball, hopefully with a good hire, that'll help that.
Yeah, I feel like we could talk more of the Packers offseason, especially coming up, especially with the draft and free agency coming, because I think there is more to talk about. And it feels like the areas of need, especially if you look online or you read stuff, it's all people are kind of on the same track, but we should definitely dive in more together. Let's dive into the other games just because, we're a little short on time, but thinking Houston, Baltimore, Tampa Bay, Detroit, Kansas City, Buffalo. What are your takeaways from any of those games? What did you like? What did you not like?
Baltimore is a Super Bowl favorite, I think, at this point. That team is dominant, and we talked about their defense, but Lamar Jackson, 4 touchdowns running and passing. I think Christian McCaffrey could make a run at the MVP like Mahomes could as well, but I really think it's Lamar's the way he's playing right now. Bills, if we want to talk about how we feel, I think at least we can look to Buffalo and say at least we're not them. Wide right, if people can remember their history and, Super Bowl history with them. Yeah, it's just brutal. It's just not a good situation. I think. I think they're coaches on the hot seat right now. I think people are looking at Josh Allen as not not being that guy when it comes to playoff football. And so I think that's a really big head scratcher. With Buffalo not getting it done at home again. But yeah, Baltimore is dominant, and then I think the feel good is the Lions. I think Lions are advancing. They're highlighting stories of their fans right now, and just kind of the journey they're making. So I think it's kind of more of a feel good story for Detroit right now.
Yeah, I just want to remind all 20,000 of our viewers from last week that I did go 4 for 4 in our picks from last weekend's games. But honestly, like Fred was talking about with Baltimore, they're just so dominant. Like I don't even know. So Houston's touchdown was an interception. Or no, sorry, a kick return. I don't even know if they ever really crossed midfield at many points during the game. I mean, they're just so good defensively that that is going to be a tough matchup for Kansas City. So that game, it was close at half, but you could just tell as soon as the second half started, whatever they said at halftime, they were just ready to roll. The Detroit game, that was kind of exactly what I thought it would be. It was close, but that obviously the home field advantage made a difference. Jared Goff is good. I don't know what you guys think about Goff, but I for being a quote unquote throw in that Matt Stafford trade, he's made all the difference in the world. He's stable. And he's not afraid to spread the ball around to different guys. Jahmyr Gibbs is finally starting to break out significantly over the last couple weeks. That team's dangerous, and if you're not a fan of any of the other three teams, I feel like you're a Detroit fan the next couple weeks. And then Kansas City Buffalo was everything I wanted it to be. It was the best game of the weekend. Like I said, I compared it to Manning Brady, the Allen Mahomes. I kind of feel like that's what we got. It was kind of who got the ball last. It's too bad it came down to a kick again. But yeah, being a Buffalo fan would be rough. But like I said, Mahomes, you can't bet against him in the playoffs. You just cannot. It's clutch. They looked good. That's the best Kansas City offensively has looked all year, and there's no reason for me to think that can't continue.
Yeah.
So okay, give your last thoughts, Brian.
No, I think people are going to give Mahomes a lot of credit in that he's the face of the franchise and everything, but I mean Andy Reid getting it done, that team, they were running the ball. I mean Pacheco, I mean it's going to be really interesting to see what they do against Baltimore because they weren't really. I mean Mahomes is getting it done, but a couple of my childhood buddies are diehard Chiefs fans, and they're like, run the ball. They wanted to hand the ball off at the end of the game because
just stop giving it to McCole Hardman. Stop. Never again give the ball to McCole Hardman.
Especially on the goal line. What are you thinking? Don't overthink it. Exactly. Here's the thing about Buffalo's defense. Buffalo, I think McDermott is a good defensive coach. I mean, I think they were pretty injured. I think they were down 8 guys, from their starting lineup at the beginning of the year. Baltimore is not injured. They're not. They're healthy. So let's get into picks. You have Chiefs, Baltimore, and then you have the Lions, 49ers. What are your picks this weekend?
I'll be clear. My picks are who I think are going to win, not who I want to win.
Okay, yeah.
So, I think the 49ers are going to get it done. I will say I agree definitely with your commentary on Goff. But the Lions secondary is not that good. Baker Mayfield, still serving me up some humble pie. I mean, over 300 yards passing. Mike Evans had a day. I think Purdy's going to look really good against them. I think McCaffrey's going to get out in space on the ground in the passing game. If Debo plays, he'll even be more electric. So I like San Fran to take it by double digits there, and then I think the Baltimore game is going to be close. I can't see Casey getting blown out, but I think Baltimore gets it done at the end. I think at home, they have Dalvin Cook as their third string running back. I mean, they're going to ground and pound. I think they're going to keep the ball away from Mahomes if they can. And I don't expect it to be that high scoring. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points in that game. I just have a feeling they're, the 2 great kickers, and I think it's going to be an interesting game of some ball control maybe.
Yeah, I have Kansas City being Baltimore. I'm gonna ride Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. I just feel like he is Tom Brady. Like what we would said about Tom Brady 10, 15 years ago. Is how I feel about Patrick Mahomes. He gets the job done. I have to see it from Lamar. And if Lamar does it this weekend, I'll give him all the credit in the world, but I need to see it first before I can fully like hop aboard the Ravens. Although I do think they are the better team, Baltimore. I want to be clear about that. Detroit 49ers. I also think will be a close game. I think Dan Campbell's going to pull out every single trick in the book this weekend. I mean, he's shown that he's going to do it. I actually think San Fran without Debo is not as good of a team. Like I think he makes that much of a difference. So I'll say it's close. I'll still pick San Fran, but I could see that being. I mean, the spread, as I was just looking, spread is 7. I think Detroit will cover the 7 for sure. So I'll go San
49ers are
Fran
getting
and
a
Kansas.
lot. 49ers are getting a lot of clout. I mean, even it was 10.5 at one point with the pack.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I think the Lions are better on both defensive and offensive lines, which is pretty shocking to say considering what San Francisco has on their defensive line. But I thought the Packers handled them. Granted, the conditions probably played into it, and Bosa had Bosa numbers to some extent. Um, but also Zach Tom got hurt. That was probably our best offensive lineman outside of Elton Jenkins. And so I actually think the Lions go in and win, but I think Purdy will have a better game. I don't think this will look. Nobody will look on Purdy's legacy and say, "Oh, he can't do it in the playoffs or whatever." But I think the Lions win because I just think I think the lines are better. Um, and then Chiefs Baltimore, I think is going to be the best game. And I totally know what you're saying, Chris, because it's like Mahomes is weirdly almost underrated. Like I don't think anybody kind of saw what was going to happen in Buffalo. I think everybody thought, oh, he's finally going on the road, and it's probably the hardest place to play in the NFL. But I guess he had said that it's even harder to play in Baltimore himself. This was maybe during the regular season. So I actually think Baltimore is going to pull it out. I think they'll win, and I think it's because their defense is so good. And I don't think Lamar thinks he has to make every play. And I think Todd Monken is just a way, way better offensive coordinator than he's had it with Greg Roman the last 3 years or whatever. So how many of us have the Lions? Just me? I just have the Lions. You guys have San Francisco.
yeah.
Me and Frem have the Ravens. You have the Chiefs. Hey, we don't agree. That's good. It's good
Love it.
content. Good content. Okay, let's end on this. Fantasy playoff league. Now we're down to 4. Again, Chris created this league. He's that cool. Frem advanced. How many points did you have?
Like 117, something like that.
Woo! Was that the
Yeah.
highest?
Yeah.
Let's go. And Chris, you got eliminated.
Yeah, I was first out.
What happened? What was the wrong draft pick? Stand up
Yeah,
for
honestly,
yourself.
it was pretty straightforward why I lost. I picked Debo. So I had the turn. I'd pick 8, so I had 8, 9. And I went, I just pulled it up here. I don't remember. Sorry, this is bad radio here. I went Rashad White and Debo. And Rashad did his job. But Debo getting hurt, I mean, I think I missed the cut by like 10 points. And I feel very confident Debo would have gotten that. But otherwise, I don't feel disappointed with any of my other picks. I think Frem and I were talking. Like, I didn't miss on anybody. It's just I unfortunately got the injury bug of the one guy that went out this weekend. So
the in-game injuries are so annoying in
yeah,
fantasy, and it's a reality.
I will say one more thing. This is just important to note. So this is like the 5th year of the league. I didn't want to say this last week because I don't believe in, or I didn't want to jinx it. But this is the first year I will not win the league. It's disappointing.
You were due.
So it hurts. But yeah,
That's incredible.
it's okay. It's because we raised the entry fee. That's why I lost. Like now that's actually for more money.
The
No,
fantasy gods look down on you. Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
They want me to pay.
Yeah, understandable. Frem, what was your top pick? What was your best player?
I believe Travis Kelce was had 2 touchdowns. I know St. Brown got in the end zone, but I think Kelce was the top pick.
He
there.
went off.
Baker also was like I said, he cut up Detroit's defense pretty well. So Baker and Kelsey really the two top scorers on the team.
That's awesome. Well, good luck this week. Who was your first two picks?
I got McCaffrey, and in spite of everything I just said, I actually picked Mahomes. So let's hope he does well.
You ran Kelsey back, right? You got the Mahomes-Kelsey stack?
I did get Mahomes and Kelsey, so
it's nice.
I'm just hoping for receptions. I don't know if Kelsey will get in the end zone, but I'm just hoping, maybe like 10 plus receptions. Maybe he gets a touchdown.
Wow. Well, good luck. Who's left? It's you, Elliot. Who else is in there?
Parker.
Parker and Austin.
Austin, that's the other one.
Well, I'm either rooting for you or Parker because I know who you are.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
I'm going to shout out Parker here. Parker is that one guy in fantasy that feel like gets close all the time but never gets it done. So I'm secretly rooting for him. I hope he's listening.
Could be you. Could be you, Parker. You had to throw that.
I think we went up in the championship last year.
Yeah.
So. Maybe I'll get past the round of 12 next year. All right. Last weird thing, TCU women's basketball ran out of players due to injuries, and they held tryouts for walk-ons to have enough people to play. This also could happen at Whitewater. You never know. What team would you want to realistically – I don't know. Realistically is not – we shouldn't have that word in here. What team would you want to join as a walk-on if you could possibly do this?
Great question. I looked into playing D3 football. It was actually Coach Bullis when I was already at Whitewater. I think my recruiting information was out there. Like he actually called me up like after I was already going to the school, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm like already going to Whitewater." I would go play on the football team if I could walk on. It was something I always wanted to do or thought about doing, but it just didn't make sense. Whitewater was way too good to even go on that team. So. Whitewater football. I think that I played the Badgers. I was never that good. So,
go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
I don't know if this is cheating. It might be, but I think of the movie Field of Dreams, and I think of Moonlight Graham, like going in and playing one inning defensively. Like to me, give me one inning with the Cubs. You can put me wherever you want. I can hit. I can play the field. Give me one chance. Get me in the box score. So I have my own baseball reference page, and that's all I need.
Love it.
That's cool. My idol. Who did I look up to? This guy named Khalid El Amin. You guys know who that is? UConn. Yeah. The short, stocky point guard. I looked up to him because I was like, that could be me. So I would want to try to reincarnate myself as that for the University of UConn.
Is that 99?
I think so. I think I was 11 or 12, so that makes sense.
Khalid El Amin.
Yeah, Khalid El Amin. So crazy situation. Didn't they have to forfeit 2 games?
Yeah.
TCU women's basketball?
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. I feel like that won't happen again because even women's college basketball sports are getting bigger. I think even 5 years ago, we wouldn't have even heard this story because nobody really cared. And then Caitlin Clark came along and now everybody likes women's college basketball, Do you
remember when we were in, I think when we were in high school or college, I don't remember, and Bobby Knight ran that walk-on TV show. Mm-hmm. It's like anyone in the Texas Tech campus could be a part of it, and whoever won this walk-on show made the team. Night School. I think it was called Night School. It's a great title.
Was the dude good?
Honestly, don't remember. But it's just it just reminds me of that. It's a pretty cool story. They're really good. So we all know this, right? We played intramurals. There are some darn good players on these campuses. We went to a D3 school.
My goodness.
I remember on our intramural team one year, we had Jared Whartonby, who literally the year before led the WIAA in touchdown passes, wasn't playing on the team. And he's playing quarterback on our intramural team. There's some good players out there.
I know. You go to a stacked school like Whitewater, and you're that's what you even look at walking on. You're you look around, and you're everyone's good here.
Well, and especially in basketball, I don't know about football, but basketball in particular, like the high school to college, like flip. I mean, you don't even realize how good they are in college until you try to go play. I mean, it's a pretty big gap, and then from college to NBA, it's an even bigger gap. So for those, 15th guy on the bench in an NBA team, they're actually super good. It's just they're not as good as like the
Right.
top, 5 or 10 on the team. All right, well, let's wrap up here. Good podcast here. Thank you for listening. We will talk more NFL. Enjoy the games this weekend. Can't wait to meet again. And we are working on some intro music, working on a little bit intro, outro stuff. So we'll get maybe some weird old photos of us on there. Chris, I think you're probably the, not yearbook, but the keeper of the files, most likely. So thank you again. Enjoy the games this weekend. We'll see you guys next week. See y'all.